Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Marketing That Grows Your Business show. We are, as usual, having a little bit of a tech issue. It's always something, you know? I just noticed that. Let's see if this is working. I think we'll be fine. We're just going to roll with the dice as we always do. Something always seems to pop up at the last minute when you go live. A light falls on your head or something happens. But anyway, real excited about today's special guest. I'm always excited about our special guests because they say yes to coming and sharing their amazing sauce with us. But this is a very different type of guest than we've ever had before because it really keys in on, I think, a core component that a lot of us have, but yet we don't have an outlet to express it in the traditional business box. So that is creativity. I think a lot of us have it, and we don't know necessarily how to, capitalize on it or let it show up inside of our businesses. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Like I say, I'm super excited. As you guys are coming in, just give me a shout out. Where in the world are you this morning? I have had a lovely weekend. This is my birthday week, so I have a birthday later in the week, and my husband arranged for both of my boys were supposed to come this past weekend. One of them made it, one didn't, but hey, I'll take one out of the two any day of the week. So we had a lovely weekend here in Virginia, and it is getting to be a little bit fallish. Like the leaves are beginning to fall and change color and all the things. But we still had a lovely time together. Good morning, Paul. Great to see you. And I know some of you are going to know or be familiar with our special guest. I am, like I say, excited to have her with us today. I've known her for a long time, and I'll key in on that a little bit more in just a minute, to where I've actually met her for the first time, and then being able to watch her journey. It has been an incredible journey. She's going to tell us a lot more about that in her own words. But on every show, we do giveaways. And today we're doing something super special to really recognize our special guest. I'm going to give away two of Diane's books. Now, I chose this one, even though it says Effective Learning Strategies for Kids, because I feel like if you aren't doodling already, you need to kind of act like you're a kid again. And so we're going to give away two of these, and it's 21 days, doodle days, for you guys to start getting back to your creative self, maybe getting back to a little bit of being a kid again, essentially. So with the 21 doodle days, we're going to give away two of these. If you go over to Amazon, you will find that Diane has a number of amazing books, and you might want to check them out because they could be super helpful if you decide you're going to lean in to this doodle space. Then they might be amazing opportunities, resources for you to learn more. So how do you win? Well, we win by doing a few things. We enter you into what we call the Wheel of Wow. So if you're interested in the doodle book and want to win, you got to do a couple of things. There's only three simple things. One, share your aha moments, which you're going to get some today, because this is a conversation you probably haven't seen or heard anywhere else. So share your aha moments in the comment area down under. An aha moment is like, wow, I didn't know that. So you have that, that's hashtag aha, right? Sometimes you need to hear it again, even though you know it. So drop those ahas in if they're like something you knew, but you just needed to listen and hear it, tune into it again. The second way is to share this out, sprinkle this out into the world, tag someone that you think would get some value out of this. This is going to be a super fun conversation. Just the whole concept of doodling in and of itself and applying that to business, I think is a super fun conversation. And then ask questions. We love, love, love questions. So please feel free to ask any questions you have. If you don't want to take notes, we got you. Okay. So all you have to do is, if you're on Facebook in particular, in fact, this only works on Facebook. Sorry about that for those of you who are on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitter or wherever else you might find us or watching. But Facebook is the only one that has a mechanism to automate the messages. So we will drop a link though in wherever you are. All you have to do is come back over to Facebook, drop in notes into that area down under, and we'll make sure that you get them. We usually try to have them out to you within 24 hours. Okay. So let me go back up here, and I saw we had some, Debbie is saying, still swimming in a heated pool. You go, girl. Yeah, she's saying it's a little chilly, fall here too, but she's still got that that heated pool. So you can't be struggling too bad there. Well, I'm excited that you're here, Debbie. We have Wendy from South Africa. Wendy, welcome. So glad that you are here. And then we have Allison in the house from Central Oregon. So glad that you're with us, Allison. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about our special guest. I've kind of hinted, I've kind of circled the tree a couple of times, but y'all, let me tell you a little bit about Diane. I will give you like the official word, but then I want to just give my little 2 cents too. So let me share who she is and what she does. She is the founder of the Center for Visual Facilitation. You may be saying, well, what the heck is that? We're going to dig into that, okay? She is a professional visual facilitator and innovation strategist with 25 years of experience working with 300 plus companies, including Nike, Google, Mars, and Disney, bringing their big ideas to life. From the stages of Caesar's Palace to the most exclusive leadership retreats, Diane has been invited to join the conversation, share her knowledge, and lead teams to success. Her presentations are always fun, interactive, and engaging. Diane will open your heart and mind to the power of visual facilitation. So you guys, it's not just about doodling. Look at her background is incredible, and she's worked with some amazing brands over the years, but she's just an amazing person. I first met Diane at my our friend Shalene Johnson's event probably 5 or 6 years back. We were trying to figure that out, but with COVID just messed up my timelines, right? I mean, I sometimes I'm like, was it 5 years ago? Was it 7 years ago? It's like that missing 2 years is like, it totally messes with my mind. But she's incredible. I've watched her journey evolve in that time frame, and I'm just really excited that she said yes to joining us today, sharing her wisdom with us. So you guys, please, please, please put your hands together for Diane.
Hi, everybody.
Well, like I said, I'm excited that you're here. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I was so excited whenever you DM'd me this summer saying, hey, I want to get you on the show. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it's like I say, I'm super excited that you're here. Like we were talking a little bit on the front side of the show before we came on, and just reminiscing about how far back we go. Some days I'm like, I'm old, but no, I'm just I'm seasoned. Yeah, there, that's a word. I need a better word for old. Well, let's dig in a little bit. I was just sharing. You shared a little bit of your journey with me as we were talking before, but just for purposes of giving everybody a little bit of visibility into your journey, how did you get started, and maybe like the 2-minute or so path to where you are today.
Sure. One of the things I was thinking about the other day is, I'm the daughter of a consultant and a crafter. So I grew up in a business environment and a creative environment where my mom was like a DIYer before there were DIYers. And so when it came to going to college, I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I studied theater, of all things. So I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater. And then from theater, I wound up at the Goodman Theater as an intern. And I would ride the train home with my dad because we lived in the suburbs. So my dad worked at this huge consulting firm. I was working in the theater world, but I carried my journal with me everywhere I went. And so one day when I picked him up from work, one of the business executives said, "What are you doing in your journal?" And I was like, oh, I'm taking visual notes because I was listening to their conversation. And so the next thing I knew, they had me drawing on whiteboards around the world for one of the top 6 consulting firms. And so my job was to listen to complexity and figure out how to simplify it on the whiteboard. And from there, as I was traveling the world as an artist, I would go to the art museums and I would go to cafes and I would be drawing and journaling and I would be finding other artists and helping them find local artists to work inside their organization so I didn't have to travel all the time. So I was always finding artists saying, hey, do you know that you can use your creativity at work? Do you know that you can get paid for being creative? And so I started helping them onboard people and building some of their trainings. And then I started to create my own community. So I created my own business where I had about 25 visual facilitators working for my company. And I had them traveling the world. We had teams of 7 going to Dubai. We had teams going to Africa, to Australia. And I was the managing director at that time. And what's interesting about that is I felt like all of my team was more creative than myself because they were all trained artists. I was a trained theater major, and my drawings are really simple, and my drawings were little doodles. And then what happened is I started drawing for my clients online. I started getting cameras and drawing from my studio, and it turns out my clients really were drawn to my drawings more than I thought they would be. And so my simple, whimsical, colorful, childlike style started to really resonate inside of organizations. And what happened was some of our top clients said, we only want Diane Bleck in the room. We only want her because the leaders love how simple she creates our strategies so we can get to the conversations. A lot of times what happens is they get a 30-minute PowerPoint and they're spending the whole time just getting the PowerPoint, whereas a visual can get you up to speed in 2 minutes. So you can actually have a dialogue with those leaders instead of wasting time in a PowerPoint where no one's really getting to the point of conversation. So all that led me to getting online. So how did I get online? I met Kim actually because we were on Periscope together at the same time, way back in the day. And at that time, what was happening is I was traveling 60 cities a year. I was a single mom. And y'all, I met the love of my life in Vegas. I got married 6 weeks later. I got pregnant. And then I was like, I can't be on the road because I'm pregnant now. I'm a newlywed. I can't leave my husband with all these kids. And so I decided to pivot my business and to teach creativity and how to unlock creativity at home, school, and work. So I started emphasizing the doodling, and I created the Doodle Institute where I have 6 online courses and I teach people about doodling. And then from there, I launched the Center for Visual Facilitation to teach people how to use visuals as a facilitator or a trainer or as coach. And so I'll stop with that to just kind of give you the little arc of how I got to today.
That is so good. So one thing I want to say real quick, y'all, as an educator myself, and as somebody who consumes content, we all in some cases are. I think we're all educators at the root of it because we are we're sharing content of some in some capacity, right? So anyway, the point that I have when it comes to creating content, in particular, when it comes to course content where I'm sharing knowledge, my struggle has always been, how do I make it engaging? Like, it's death by PowerPoint. I hate it. I hate it. But you just said, like, you know, something super powerful in that, because that sums up my whole issue is like, how do you take core concepts, explain them very quickly with a visual, and move on, so that people don't get bored. So I already told her beforehand, I realized she has a PowerPoint or a presentation training. I'm going to buy that so that maybe I can start to learn how to doodle. I'm just really loving that you talked about that, because that's something I think we all can relate to. Whether we're on the receiving end of training or whether we are creating the training, sometimes you're just bored. Like, that's just like, it sucks the life out of us, right? So, I mean, even when you go to a live event, there's still what I would call death by PowerPoint. They've got a presentation, Now there's the visual component of the speaker, but still, anyway. So let's talk about something that I think is fascinating. I know you had this journey and you'd started making money pretty early on, but for people who can't like wrap their heads around the fact that you can make money doodling, what was that transition for you like? Like when you realized that the thing that you had been doing and you took for granted was a moneymaker for you. What did that look like? What did it feel like? I'm just curious about that journey for you.
Yeah. So when I started doing this, I was working inside of an organization, and I was aware of how much brain power I was using creating visuals for someone, because I'm listening to what's being said in the room. I'm listening to what's not being said in the room. I'm trying to simplify those ideas, and I'm trying to reflect back the conversation so that it's a genuine reflection and doesn't have my opinion in it. That's a lot of work going on in this little body while I'm there doing the event. And I would be standing on my feet for 12 hours a day sometimes doing this. And so part of the value was understanding like how taxing this was, because at that time I would work for 2 weeks and then I would take almost a week or two off to recover, to then be able to go back and do the work. And that's whenever I started to understand, like, not only is this valuable, but like this is a skill other people can use. And then really helping other people. The biggest thing I did was with clients. Like if someone came to me back in the day, listen, pro tip, write this down. If someone's coming to you and they are trying to hire you, if you take visual notes while they are sharing what their pain points are, when you go back to share your services, even the simplest sketch lets them know that they've been heard, lets them see what you can bring, and gives them a tool that they can take inside their organization to sell you as their team. And so a lot of the ways that I help people understand the doodling was, I said, the doodling is just visual storytelling. And I'm going to give you an example right now, right here in our discovery call. And that led me to getting hired by companies to just be on their sales calls. I was on retainers for organizations just listening in on their sales calls and then reflecting back the visuals because they landed every single project. And so like all of these things helped me to understand how important like the visuals were inside a business. And then I always turn around and share what I've learned with others so that they can keep their businesses going as well.
That's so amazing. And you just outlined like a couple of different, like I would call them revenue opportunities for people that might think about this in the light of, hey, I could learn how to doodle and hey, I could get paid to do this. So let's talk a little bit about the term visual facilitator. I'm curious about that word, or those two words actually. And then in the construct of how do people take advantage of that? I know you're currently doing a lot of work within organizations to help them build up visual facilitators, but explain that process a little bit, because I think there's just so many people that haven't embraced their creativity, haven't considered it, and maybe this is another lane, whether they use it in an existing business or potentially strike up a new opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So visual facilitation is two words specifically: visual, to make things visual so you can see them, and facilitation means to make easy. So visual facilitation is the term for this type of work in this industry. And I've been in this industry for over 20 years doing this work. And so what I do to help people understand it is it starts with basic icons. And that's the first thing people say is, I can't doodle, I can't draw. And I'm like, if you can draw a dot, give me 20 minutes and I can teach you how to draw. And I can teach you how to not only create icons, but start to build your own visual vocabulary. So I run this thing called the top 50 icons, and that helps you to just get some base 50 icons in your visual vocabulary. Then from there, we build a custom visual vocabulary for you over this 3-day fundamentals workshop that I teach. And that's really helping you. How do you get that muscle memory of the icons you want to draw? So let's say I'm working with a healthcare company. We'll create some visual icons inside of their organization so that when they go to start brainstorming different processes, different journey maps, different action plans, they have a shared visual vocabulary. And then from there, we start to add more kind of how to use a map or model or a metaphor. So I already kind of said those. How do you do a journey map? How do you do an action plan? How do you create a wheel of life? And so then we start layering on maps, models, and metaphors so that now these visuals have meaning. And then once they have meaning, now you start using them in your training. You start creating a visual for a parking lot. You start making a visual for your agenda. You start making a visual for an infographic you want to create, and you learn how to, what we call, harvest ideas in the moment. And then the other thing that we do in that training is like everything you're seeing right here. How do you become a visual and a virtual champion inside of your organization and be seen as that innovator, be seen as that creative, and stand out? And what happens is that people take my training in organizations, they get promoted within 6 months because they stand out as a leader, because they stand out as a problem solver, because they stand out because they're leading from the whiteboard, not sitting at the back of the room. And so my hope is to continue to like give people all these tips, tools, and techniques for them to be able to transform how they exist inside their organization. Because here's what's happening. Inside an organization, we've got all these creatives who are kind of trapped. It's like we've like duct taped their arms, and like all I'm doing is taking that duct tape off and being like, here's some markers, here's some Post-its, here's some this, here's some this. Go like be your best creative self, and you will stand out inside your organization because you're taking risks, because you're innovating and implementing, and your leadership will take notice of that.
Oh, so good. So I love what you just said about, there being all these creatives locked into, they're duct taped essentially, which I think a lot of us potentially can relate to, because I feel like the traditional business box, if you call it that, is confining. And there's not, I think there's a lot of what I call, the same old, same old. So anytime you can introduce different components or different things, and I want you to think about this too in the light of social media in particular. One of the things that we frequently say is, how do you create that thumb-stopping content? How do you show up with unique content, something that's, not the standard old quote or whatever. So I think that that's very difficult for us as creatives to figure out what those components look like. How do we show up and be unique? And, so I'm fascinated by this whole doodling concept, because now I'm like, yeah. And it was interesting you were talking about icons, because that's one of the core components of our authority websites is when we're helping people do branding, we identify what those icons are. We create them, but we're doing it more from I would call it a traditional lane than a doodle lane, which, wow, can you imagine if we really opened that up? That would be clever. Well, let me ask you this. What are you not good at? And has doodling helped you get better at the things that you are not good at?
100%. Yeah. So like when I first started, right? I have a theater background because I didn't want to do math. Honestly, least amount of math requirements ever, theater, check that box. And the next thing I knew is I became a business owner, and I became like a female business owner. And so I started taking classes. I started taking classes on entrepreneur organization in Nashville, Tennessee. I started taking, QuickBooks classes. I started taking all these things, and like those are areas that are my weakness. And so I took my visual notes there to help me simplify what I was even learning so that I could break it down. One of the ways that Kim and I met was Shalene Johnson. I drew all the visual notes at her live events, and those would go crazy on social media because visuals go viral on social media. They really do. And they go viral for you. It doesn't mean they have to be millions of views. My stuff lately has hit quite a few million, which is amazing and mind-blowing. But when I'm learning something new, I break it down through visuals. So even like right now, I'm running a 5-day challenge, and I have 1,000 participants. And y'all, I've got this whole whiteboard to the right of me that has what is my tool I'm teaching? What are the questions I'm asking? Like, I'm always breaking down things down visually because I use them. So even whenever I struggle with something, a book that I'm reading, a concept I'm learning, I'm constantly drawing to help me understand it and synthesize it.
So good. So for those of you who might struggle with, our brains work differently. Yeah, I think well, we know that, like science will tell us that a creative brain works differently. And, but the fascinating part is there's way more visual learners than there is the other, auditory, et cetera, kind of learners. So thinking about this and breaking it down and being able to consume content and help you to ultimately use it to raise up and overcome things that you're not super good at. I think that is just a fascinating thing, and I was curious about that, which is why I asked the question. So, how do you, in your opinion, blend it? How do we blend that creativity? Because I feel like a lot of us have put our creativity kind of in a box. So how do we start to blend our creativity with our business, and potentially even using this creative doodling concept?
Yeah. So one way to just start blending it that I always tell people is, first of all, like so you talked about like a lot of us are visual learners. I'm doing a lot of research on that. And what's fascinating is we actually store memories visually. Like it's not only that we recognize visuals 1,000 times faster and 80% of people are visual learners, but our brain actually saves information visually. So even if you're a person who's like, I'm not a visual thinker, your brain is constantly storing things visually. So one way to start practicing is to just start like researching things you want to be able to draw and look at those and start to practice them. And what I say is practice them on, let me find a blank one, on blank index cards. So just on a blank index card, start to write something down. But then with that icon, add some words. So like, I want to develop your ideas, or I want to determine my priorities, or how do I outline my next steps? And these are called BAM cards, and these are little ones. So that's how you're going to build your visual vocabulary. Start with index cards and start just kind of like thinking of an icon, thinking of a phrase, because our brain is going to think of pictures. The other thing is, as a facilitation tool, pro tip, like make some fun cards that you can hold up in your Zoom rooms and be like, thank you so much for joining me today. Or, hey, let's celebrate. Or we're going to take a quick lunch break, everyone, because the visuals already set the cue. Just like our backdrop brings energy, these bring energy. These say, oh my gosh, this is going to be creative. This is going to be fun. Have a little happy birthday card so that if someone comes in, you can be like, hey, happy birthday. Let's say you want to be like, listen, we're going to make this super easy peasy today. Okay. We're going to make it easy peasy. Or my favorite, if like your Zoom room is totally quiet, crickets, what's going on here? Right. But like, I'm playing with humor. I'm playing with visuals. I'm playing with fun. And I'm not asking you to get a huge whiteboard or do anything like super crazy. Get some index cards. Think about some phrases you use. Add a little icon. Think about, if I was facilitating in person, what were some things that I used to draw on flip charts that I now need to use in the visual world, and be able to make it small, have them pre-drawn. These are laminated. And then I have a whole little clear sleeve that I call my BAM cards, and I just pull out my little BAM cards, and I have these to be able to use. So that's a little bit of a pro tip of how to start activating and building your visual vocabulary.
Oh my goodness. So this reminds me of, you remember in Periscope days when what do you call them? I'm trying to be nice, but
the trolls.
The trolls, yes, the trolls would come in and they'd be like, "Show your bobs," and I would be. So I ended up printing off all these bobs, like Bob Hope, Bob, all these bobs, faces of bobs. For those of you who didn't have that pleasure of being on Periscope and having the experience of trolls, basically they were, I think, who knows what kind of person they were, but they would show up on your Periscopes, and they would encourage you to be especially as ladies, to share, body parts. So the bobs are, fill in the blank. You can probably get it, what I'm hinting at this point. So anyway, but the point is that everybody just always thought that was so funny, because I'd be like, absolutely, I will so show my bobs to you guys. And so I would take the pictures and show them the bobs. It was always a hilarious moment in my periscopes. So I was, as you were going through that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so, you hate to say common sense because it's brilliant. I mean, you're brilliant that you've come up with this, but why don't we all think of these things? Like, of course, I guess if we did, we'd all be you. But no, I'm serious. Like, we should be doing these things. That's so clever. Is that not clever, you guys? Deb was saying lamination makes them shine. So, do you hold them at an angle to keep the reflection off?
Yeah, so I'm always holding them as an angle, and then whenever I go to my overhead camera, they show up super matte. So, but then it makes it so that I'm not redrawing these over and over. So that's why I like to laminate them.
So good. Okay.
And then real quick about trolls, one of my favorite periscopes I did a whole drawing of the 3 trolls under the bridge and what it's like to be a periscoper to try and get to the other side. And that you have to go, if you want to do this, you have to go over it, and you have to understand there will be trolls under the bridge every day. You just never know if they're going to pop up. So how are you going to handle them when they do pop up? And that's when Shalene found me. And what was crazy about Shalene is I didn't know who Shalene was. And she was like, who are you? I need your markers. And she was like in my Twitter, like crazy, asking me all these questions. And I was like, who is this person? And then she wound up like truly mentoring me, sending me all these personal messages. Try this, try this, try this. And then, like I've been able to like co-launch with her, or, be one of her affiliates and things like that. But here's the funny story. Just yesterday, I was talking to my mom and I was talking about Shalene because I'm watching the wedding that's happening.
Right.
Both of her kids have gotten married.
Right.
And I was showing my mom, and I was like, look, Mom, they put this plastic bag over her at the wedding or whatever. And my mom was like, she looks like Shalene that I've seen on TV. Does she do like Payo or something like that? I was like, yes, she does. And my mom was like, you know her? And I was like, yes, Mom, I've been talking about her for like 6 years. I go to her events, I draw for her, but it just clicked for my mom yesterday. And she's like, well, that's amazing. You know, someone famous. And I was like, yes, Mom. Okay. Yes. But I love, like, Shalene was a huge supporter of people like me, encouraging me to keep going live and go over that fear. And that's what I talk about. Even with the visuals, there's a line of fear of, am I going to look silly? Look, start with something little. Hey, make sure you sign up for notifications today. Like so just tiny little things. Start with something small. But what happens is people will be like, oh my gosh, I love your visuals. And they'll give you feedback, and just keep serving those people that enjoy it.
Yeah, so good. So just real quick on Shalene, one of the things that one of the many things I've learned from her, from putting on my eyelashes to from a business perspective, what she is amazing at, as soon as she sees somebody that she connects with, she goes right to them to learn. She does not try to figure it out on her own. She's like, I want to know what you know, and here's my money, and there's a big lesson in that as business owners. We, I think, sometimes hold ourselves back so frequently by not getting help. I've got to a place where if I want the outcome, I just find somebody. So like now I'm Diane, sorry, you're probably going to be getting lots of messages from me too, because I'm like, okay, I need to know this. I need to know this. How do I pay you? That was one of the biggest business lessons I've really taken away from her is stop. I'll just say it, pussyfooting around, and just figure out how that person is doing whatever they're doing by paying them to shorten the learning curve, essentially.
Absolutely.
I think that's a big lesson for us. And then she's just an amazing human. To your point, she really is supportive of all of us that, is on this journey together, essentially.
Yeah.
Let me ask this, because I'm going to pull in this a little bit, because you talked about the fear factor, and I think that's reality for all of us. I don't care where we are. There's something that holds us back probably each and every day. So can you share, and I would say it's been bigger for you. And the reason I'm going to say that is because the reality is, I think probably a lot of people, it's just like when I started in social media, oh, all you do is post on social. Is that it? And I would say you've probably gotten that same like attitude, like, what you're doodling, like seriously. So can you talk about that resistance a little bit? Like, what's it been like to, I'll say, feel less than because of what you do? Because I'm sure you've run into it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. So when I first started, like people would call me the doodle girl. And at first, like it felt negative. It felt almost like a little bit of a dig of like, oh, she's just the doodle girl. And then I decided to embrace it. And I decided to say, yes, I am the doodle girl. And anytime you're looking for visuals to solve your most complex problems, think of me. And so I started to take that tagline and change it. But even for myself, like I said, I mean, I wasn't a business major. I didn't plan on growing a business. I didn't plan on growing multiple businesses at this point. And so I always invested in mentors and coaches that helped me feel better. I've always had a high-end coach working with me. And I'm always investing in new stuff. But when it comes to like overcoming that fear, I always went back to my journal. So there's journals where I'm like processing complex things. And then there's like my iPad where I'm drawing for other corporate people. Like I just drew for Tony Robbins a challenge, and my personal inbox blew up like crazy because people loved all the visuals. But when it comes to like my personal processing of feelings, emotions, self-doubt, fear, all of that, I do that in my journals, and I still draw in my journals. I call it meditation with markers. And that's where I go deep, and I really channel and remember my creativity. And I remember like, why am I here? And if I think about why am I here? Yes, the tagline is to unlock creativity at home, school, and work, but I'm here to be a beacon of light for those who see me and they see like how different I am, like out there drawing rainbows, unicorns, all that stuff. But they also see, and she's being a professional and she's getting paid. If I can be that beacon for that person, that they continue on the path that they want to do, so that creativity doesn't get turned off. That's what's happening, is our creativity is just getting turned off because we have to grow up and not use our creativity. And one of my coaches that worked with me, they said, one of your greatest assets, Diane, is that you never surrendered your inner child. You took her with you. You took her in your hand and you let her join you as an adult. And so my hope is to be that light for someone. And that's where I'm really affecting generations. That's where kids are inspired watching me. That's where a stay-at-home mom is drawing with her kid. That's where families are coming together and drawing my little doodle TV program. That's where books are out there for people. And that's where I really feel like my biggest impact is you may never spend $1 with me, but you might be inspired, and it might change the course of your life, because you might have that little bit of confidence of, if Diane Bleck can do this, I can do it too. And that's where I really think is the most powerful work that I do here. And that's where it's funny. My daughter last night, she got a text from a good friend who he wrote her, and he's like, your mom is like, did you know your mom's famous? And she's like, no, my mom's not famous. He's like, yes, she is. She's got like 6 million views on her things and all that. He's like, she taught me in 4th grade how to doodle. Like, she came in and she taught all of us in the class. And that's what I still do. I want to teach kids to use your visuals, to use your doodles, to not think that doodling is silly, to not think that doodling is not paying attention. Actually, doodling is hyper paying attention, because you're bringing in multiple types of learning. You're bringing in kinesthetic, you're bringing in auditory, you're bringing in visual, and your brain is mapping that visual so it's easier to recall it later. So my hope is to break the stigma that doodling is not paying attention. And in fact, doodling is a superpower.
Okay, y'all. I've been sitting here trying not to cry because if you just listened to that and you didn't just hear how passionate she is about her light and her hope that she makes an impact. And I think we all have that. We just don't use it like Diane is using it. Maybe where she's using that as fuel, and I think we should all be using that power that we have within us, that light that we're all given, to use it for the reason we were gifted it. It's unfortunate so often we hide those things and don't let them shine. So I just want you, if you didn't really lean into that last response, there was so much power in that. So go back and listen to that. So good. Um, so I know that with COVID, a lot of businesses changed, and I'm just curious if you would really, um, explain a little bit about how COVID shifted your business, and what that looked like for you.
So COVID shifted my business in two ways. So first thing I wanna explain is like the Doodle Institute is a passion project. It is a project where I've put countless hours. I've made over 100 video lessons inside of there. And that is where I pour all my creativity. And that creativity helps me be creative for my higher end clients. Because if I show up with my higher end clients and my well is empty, my creative tank doesn't have any color or paint in it, I have nothing to give to the business world. So I've built a business that allows my creativity to feed my business and my business to feed my creativity. So when COVID hit, I did two things. One, everyone came home, right? And I homeschooled. I took all kids out of school and I homeschooled for my two younger ones. My high schooler stayed in school online. My two younger kids stayed home, and I became a homeschool mom for a full solid year because I had a husband that was going through some health issues and some surgeries, and we couldn't afford to expose him to anything. So I'm a homeschool mom, and I'm doing a live doodle lesson, like 7 to 20 minutes every day on Instagram for families, for kids, for moms. And so I poured in to the online community of people who were suddenly like, what do I do with my kid at home? And I just was giving out lots of doodle activities and things like that. And then on the business side, I had already built the Center for Visual Facilitation, and I had launched it once because I launch it twice a year. So I launched it in August, and then I was launching it again in March, the week that COVID was hitting. Like it was March 17th, and I couldn't believe I was launching. Sorry, my computer just went to sleep. And so during that time, first of all, I had guilt for launching during COVID because I didn't know what was happening and I didn't know if I should be launching. Second of all, I was so glad I was launching because I was seeing people in my industry losing contract after contract after contract because our work was dependent on us drawing in the room with our clients, and no one knew how to use Zoom and no one knew how to go virtual yet. And my course, the tagline was how to become a visual and virtual champion at work. We already had the tagline. Like we already had this work mapped out for how do you use cameras? How do you use multiple cameras so that you, oh, look, here's a cute note from my niece. How to use multiple cameras so that you can draw overhead? How do you easily switch using a switchboard? And how do you use visuals to increase your engagements? How do you use visuals for shared breakouts? And so our business actually thrived during COVID because we were serving a community that was literally falling apart at the seams because no one had a backup plan. No one had contracts that had clauses to at least give them some kind of cushion. And so we were rapidly getting people up to speed so that their businesses not only survived, but their businesses thrived as well. And so COVID affected both the creative side of my business because I now became like this like mini little show that people were following on Instagram. And I was serving my high-end clients. And I was legit the mom with like a kid on each side. I'm teaching kindergarten and sixth grade at that time, simultaneously. And I was a nurse taking care of my husband who had surgery during COVID, where they didn't keep you in the hospital and they sent you home right after major surgeries. So it was a big time. And a lot of people, so I'm doing this challenge right now. And one of the questions, I do a survey. So 200 people filled out the survey. And one of the questions people say is, how are you so prolific? How do you get so much done? And it truly comes down to my creativity is something I pour into every single day, just like you work out every day. I pour into my creativity because it's what gives me the life force to keep going.
So good. So let me ask you, pull on that a little bit, what you just said about your creativity. Like, how do you pour into your creativity? Because I think even when you're creative, you, especially from a business perspective, I think lots of times it's easier to be creative in a fun way than it is to like pull on this from a business perspective, because I think we have so many like internal roadblocks on what is acceptable and what isn't. Do we do what everybody else does, or do we show up in our own unique way? So I'm just curious, how do you like fill that well up every day? Do you have a process for that? What does it look like for you?
Yeah. So it's a couple of different things. One of it really is like quiet time and meditation where I'm like connecting. And I'm going to talk about this in tonight's challenge that I'm doing, is that there are different levels of our brain waves. And a lot of us stay in a very busy brain wave. I'll just do very generic tonight. A lot of us stay in a very busy brain wave, and we don't allow ourselves to go into a deeper brainwave state. And that brainwave state comes from meditation, it comes from journaling, it comes from painting, it comes from letting yourself get into that flow state. So I try and journal or paint or meditate or do something that gets me in that state of being. It's not even state of mind. It's like, how do I get in that state of being? And I know when I dip into that, what it does for me and how it supercharges my day. So this summer, I had such a fun time. I took the entire summer off of work. I did all my launches and I ended May 25th, and then I got COVID, which was hilarious. So I COVID for a week. I missed my high school graduation of my daughter, and I was sicker than sick. And then as soon as I came out of that, I decided to give myself a summer of painting. And I just wanted to follow my joy of painting and share it on social media. And that's where I really just gave myself permission to play. And you see two of my paintings back here. And I just followed the love of painting. And I actually feel like I understood more some of the paint masters. Not that my painting are paint masterpieces, but the process, the process of painting, I believe for them is something I tapped into, which was the joy of the painting, the joy of what happens with this on a canvas, what happens when I change this, what happens when I add this varnish, what happens when and I fell in love with the process. And then as a result, the outcomes, they connect to people because I was so deeply connected whenever I was making them. And then I started getting requests. Can you make one for this fundraiser? Can you make the one for this? Can you make one for this? And so I started painting out of just pure love. And I think what happens is a lot of times we go to create, we go to paint, and we're trying to think of like, this has to be perfect by the end of this. And instead of being like, why am I painting? What am I trying to learn? What am I trying to discover? And so I started to learn how to paint from a different place. And then from that, my Instagram just started blowing up. But I believe it was energetic. It's not just that it was eye candy. There was energy in that work. And I feel like that's the same in my whiteboards as well. As there's a side of us that we turn off energetically whenever we go to work. And if we can activate that, it helps us to brainstorm. And your creativity might be different. Your creativity might just be like, I'm using some rainbow Post-its today. Great. Like, but like follow that. There's that voice inside of us that comes up with these ideas, and like listen to it and follow it and and enjoy the process of like, oh, I have an idea, or I'm curious about, or let's test this. So I hope that explains
Yes.
that.
So as I'm listening to your story and all the, like, I always look at this through revenue streams and seeing how you've just by virtue of following your creativity, you've created additional revenue streams in many cases. Yeah. In some cases, it was heart-centered, trying to show up and serve. With COVID happened, you created a whole community of people around that. And I want to dig into your avatars in just a minute, but I want to. Do you mind holding up that the flower the one right behind you, not the rainbow one, but the other one that is right behind you?
This one?
Yes, that
one.
one.
Hold it up.
Yeah, hold it up. I just want people to see it, and I'm going to make a point.
Okay.
If you'll just, sorry. Okay, so look how amazing this is, you guys. So now let me ask you this, Diane, if you don't mind. What would you sell this doodle art for? It's a canvas that you've painted, just doodled on. It's when I say just, I don't want to make light of the of your creativity because it's amazing. But I want people to understand the opportunity for revenue here or enjoyment of just creating your own art. But in this case, you've turned your enjoyment into a revenue stream. So what would you sell this for?
This one's, I think, $4,500.
Okay, y'all. So just think about that for a second. She's used her amazing creativity and she's created this wonderful piece of art that's unique and would look fascinating and amazing on anyone's wall that was attracted to that. $4,500, you guys. So can you monetize your creativity? I'm just saying, I think she's proved that you can, right?
Well, I think you can do it on all different levels. You can do it from painting. You can do it from teaching. You can do it from facilitating. You can do it from coaching. Like if you're a coach and let me just show a couple of tiny visuals. So like if you're a coach, you could sit there with Post-its and capture someone's ideas. So this was someone I was working with because I do offer private coaching. And we were talking about 4 little areas of what she was trying to do. She was trying to simplify. She was trying to create guidelines, skills, and support. And what she did is she worked with kids who were kind of at risk, and she was creating a program for them. So then from here, we created a program that she's trying to simplify the family unit and get a positive core inside of that child that is being, deemed whatever by the system. But how do we build a positive core for them? And how do we build family routines? And then how do we create guidelines for that child to help them understand what are the guidelines that for them to function in? And so then we create a progress tracker, and then we can explore triggers that activate them. And then we wanted to create skills for them. And those skills come from conversation starters and then building them a toolkit. And then how do we create support for the whole community? And that's through looking at the past versus the present and understanding the next steps. That's just one tiny example inside of coaching of how it turned out. It started with these Post-its, and all I was doing was just being curious. Well, what's this? What does this look like? Is it a system? Is it a process? Are there stages? What comes first? Is there a title that goes above this? Is there a title that goes below this? And just being curious, and then just creating some visuals to support what she was making. So there's several revenue streams, and I heard that early on from Shalene. It's the average millionaire has 7 revenue streams. So I've got affiliates. I'm an Amazon influencer. I get paid from my content on Instagram because I'm a creator. So I get a paycheck from Instagram every month now because I create eye candy for them. I have online courses. I have coaching programs, and I have corporate training. And I have that whole spectrum of services.
And now you also have your art, which is another revenue stream.
Yes, it is.
Well. So it's just really interesting how your business has just, continued to evolve. So let's talk real quick. I know we just have a few more minutes, but I think this is a fascinating question in light of all of the avatars that you have, because you literally go from, children, kids who, want to learn how to doodle, to corporate. I mean, that's a wide span. And even now, with you doing the art, that could be like anybody, like, right, that might want your art. And traditionally, we're taught, that we should have one avatar. We shouldn't try to serve everyone. But I love, because I feel like I teach that slightly differently. I teach that, if you offer something that people want, they self-select in, which is exactly what's happened to you. So I'm just curious, though, how do you serve all of those audiences with your content strategy?
So first of all, I feel like my avatar can be the same person, even though they're a 5-year-old and they're an executive, because what happens is that executive will come up to me and say, I used to draw when I was a kid. I used to draw, but now I don't draw. So that adult is that 5-year-old who didn't get to meet Diane Bleck. So, but maybe they meet me now, right? Or maybe they're a mom who's looking to pivot because she's been an incubating mom, I call it, and she loves her creativity and she's trying to figure out how to do it more in the business world. But to me, I feel like she's the same person. It's that person who has dreamed of being creative, their dream life. If they were to sit there and be like, what's your dream life, right? So like their dream life is, how do I be creative in business? Because what happens is, in the standard education world, I'm going to go on my TED Talk platform for a second. In the standard education world, what do they tell artists? They tell artists you're going to be starving, or your paintings are going to be worth millions when you're dead. Like, how is that going to help me as a business person? How does that help me have a life? How does that help me be a mom? How does that help me provide for my family? Like, no one tells accountants or lawyers or legal analysts, like, you know what, you'll make money when you're gone, or, you'll just be a starving, accountant. No one would sign up for that. And yet we don't set up people to be creatives in this world. And I think that's where I really try and be this, again, beacon to help people understand that you can be creative at work. So when it comes to my avatar, when I first built this, I didn't know Shalene, I didn't know anyone. I was building online courses before Brendon Bouchard was out there doing stuff on how to do this. I'm sure Brendon was out there doing it, but I didn't have a mentor that taught me. So I made my avatars and I wrote them out on a flip chart. And my avatar was a girl named Julie, who was 5, who wanted to know that it was okay to draw. And my avatar was a librarian named Roseanne, who wanted to know how to bring creativity into the library. And my avatar was Sarah, who worked in corporate America, who wanted to be more creative at her job. And I literally wrote down each one of them. And I have the piece of paper somewhere. And then I wrote down, what did they want? And that's what I built the Doodle Institute for. And then I launched from there.
Yes, but you found out the common thread that they all wanted. And that's really what a transformation is about, and signaling to your person, I think, is like, what's that overarching why? What is it? And that's when you're clear. That's when your messaging gets super clear. And all those people will self-identify. If they want that thing, they self-identify and they say yes. That's why you have a wide range of buyers. Yes. Because they all want the same thing, to your point.
But then what that does for me, Kim, as a business owner, as a creative who doesn't like to do the same thing, I don't want to teach the same thing every day.
Yeah, right.
So now I have this library of services, and then my assistant and I look at them. Like right now, we're looking at the calendar and we're designing what next year is going to look like. And I can be like, I'm going to pop this one in here, and I'm going to pop this one in here. And then I like to take summer off, so we're not going to do anything there. And now I get to paint my year of what I want to do. And I get to build in those cycles of high enthusiasm, creativity, business. And I get to create waves of business where I'm doing my work. And so that's what I think is really neat, is I paint my year in advance of what I want it to look like.
So good. I love it. So good. So let me just give a quick shout out to our winners today. Deborah Lynn and Allison Marie won Diane's 21 Doodle Days. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this, because I feel like just getting started is the first. And this, again, going back to our childhood a little bit, and really pulling in that creativity, allowing ourselves to be creative again. I think we've stifled it over the years. And So, really just getting back to and then leveraging that creativity in some cool ways. Like I loved holding up the signs and all of that stuff. All of us could do that. Like it's
Yes.
not difficult. One of the questions that I saw, and you answered it, but I wanted to like pull on it again. A lot of people think, well, I'm not an artist. And you said something earlier. If you can draw a dot, you can learn how to do this.
Yes.
So I want you guys, if you are not familiar with Diane, to please, please, please follow her on Instagram and LinkedIn. We're going to drop in her links for you. I'm going to let her share. I mean, is that the best place for people to connect with you, Diane?
That's the best place to figure out what I'm doing, right? And then I'm
Okay.
always from there inviting people to what's going on. So right now we've got the Love Your Art Challenge, but there's always something new going on. But those are the two best places to, if you're interested in the business side, go to LinkedIn. If you're interested in the creative, colorful painting side, go to Instagram or follow me on both because you'll see the two hats.
Okay, awesome. I love it, love it, love it. So I'm going to close out with this. What is the question I should have asked you, but I didn't?
Ooh, what is a question you should have asked me, but you didn't? I think about being a creative mom.
Yes. Please, let's talk about that for a second. Yes. So
So
explain what that like. So not only have you done all these things, but you're also a mom, and there's a balance there. Like, what does that look like, especially during COVID? And to your point, how do your children react to all of this?
yeah, so first of all, our dining room table is part-time for meals and full-time art supplies, and it's a wave of creative projects that come and go. And so I really believe in getting on the ground, on the table, and getting creative with your kids and doing creative projects and following their interests. So some of the things that I love is, I've got one daughter who learned how to crochet during COVID, my senior, and she just sent me the coolest sweater with a duck on it that she made. She's in college, her first year, and she's like, we're going to a mixer, and I wanted to create my own sweater for it. And so she's learned that joy of creativity. And then my middle daughter is a great little artist on her iPad and draws all the time. And then my son is also a drawer and then does Legos and engineering. But when you teach a child and when you run a home based on creativity, there's very little time for TV. There's very little time for all these other things because we love the joy of creation and creating. And so there's constant projects that go in and out of our house, but we also go on adventures. So we went to the color factory this weekend and explored the color factory together. And so teaching children about their creativity, but being a creative mom, when they see their mom being creative, it helps them be creative as well. And it teaches them how to be a self-creator.
And I personally think that when you can raise a child up to see the possibilities, because that's really what I think creativity is. It's like, what are the possibles that of using our imagination to come up with those whatever they are. I mean, that's the reality of it is like there's limitless possibilities. What does it look like for each individual? Then they grow up to think outside of the box. They grow up thinking all things are possible, right? It's like that creativity is it's inbred in them essentially, and it's not stifled. So yeah. I just really love that you're doing this with your children because I can't even imagine. I mean, you got one getting ready. What is the age span of your children? I know you said you have one.
So my oldest is a freshman in college. She's studying environmental science and mechanical engineering, and she just got a study abroad program in Iceland, but she draws all these amazing things and she uses drawings in her lessons. My freshman and high schooler, and then I have a second grader. So I have a big span of kids, but my freshman high school, last story on her, I'm like raising Elle Woods incarnated from Legally Blonde, like she uses all color and play, and like all of her handouts are like done in Canva, and then she dresses to match them. So she'll be like in a strawberry sweater handing over her strawberry exercise. And then she always asks her teacher, like, you know, can I use colored fonts? And the teacher's like, sure. She's like, so you would not be opposed to pink showing up in my assignment? And like she you know, she dressed out for this, like she dressed up for this one report out, but like she has no fear taking risks. And this is in high school where so many kids could easily be trolls, right?
Yeah.
And she's like learned to be comfortable in her creative self and just being like, I'm sorry you've missed out on learning how to express yourself fully, you know, like she's so confident in herself. And I just love that about her. So
I love that too. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I want to say thank you guys also. All of you who are watching live with us or on the replay, listening, wherever you are. Thank you for spending time with us. As always, we know time is valuable and we appreciate when you spend some with us. So Diane, thank you for sharing your genius with us.
Thank you.
And we will see everybody next week, same time, same place. And we'll be talking about, I don't always remember our next guest for the next time around. Hang on. Let me see who our next guest is. I think I have it in my list here. Our guest next week is going to be Dorian Van Dam. So Dorian is amazing too. You guys are going to really enjoy her. We'll see her next week. So thank you guys again. We'll see you next week, same time. Diane, appreciate you, sweetie. Talk soon, everybody. Bye-bye.